I had come back home to retrieve my silk shawl, my mother's hand-woven shawl, a symbol of our family, passed down from the Tlingit tribe. It was the only physical remnant of that stubborn, proud heritage that came with being an Alaska native. So, as my husband Elias would say, it wasn't just an old rag. My mother was proof of our connection to this land, to this cold sea. Normally, I should have been at the oil conference in Valdez right now. Aaron, as manager of a small-town fishing company, Arctic Catch, had told me I needed to earn respect in front of Anchorage's bigwigs. But that respect was just a stepping stone for his ambitions. When I realized I had forgotten my passport at home, I canceled my last-minute flight and returned home without telling anyone. This gave me 3 days, just like it had given Johanna. 3 days of invisibility. I opened the door. The sound of the lock was louder than I expected. Despite the dim light inside, I saw that nothing had been moved. I knew Aaron was too lazy to come here in my absence. He would be waiting in our own luxury apartment in the city center. I walked quietly down the hallway. The chest was there. As I reached for it, I heard a low voice coming from the study upstairs. "Hello, don't forget to subscribe so we can create more stories for you." No, the doctor just gave him a high dose. He drank it as herbal tea. He has a few weeks left. Don't worry, this time everything will look legal. Herbal tea. My stomach clenched. My mother had heart failure, yes, but her condition wasn't critical. Elias must have arranged for Dr. Akins, just like Dr. Vaughn did for Naya. They were killing my mother under the guise of a legal, medical error. I realized this was just the beginning, as Elias's voice turned to cold hatred. "Tell Talia I'll pay her damn debts, but she'll do what's necessary too. That stupid little sister of mine. After she signs the transfer papers for the family company, Arctic Catch, she'll be in trouble too. Everyone will die, but first, she'll transfer everything to our name." My blood ran cold. I was about to collapse to the floor, but I remembered Ayana's whisper to Nia, "Hide!" Within a second, I was crouched behind my father's hunting cabinet in the hallway. Talia, my sister, my mother, me, and the company we inherited from our father. We were all caught in a circle of betrayal. Talia was Aaron's mistress and business partner. Just like Seren had done, she had sold us out because of her own debts and greed. My marriage to Elias had lasted 13 years. He was a small but ambitious official in the Anchorage city government. I, meanwhile, had taken over my father's fishing fleet and our small salmon cannery, Arctic Catch. My father had built an honest business in these harsh Alaskan lands. That was my true inheritance. Elias demanded absolute trust from me, just as Johanna did from Tobias or Naya from Tariq. His influence in the city and legal knowledge were seen as superior to my crude and emotional native business sense. 2 years ago, Elias's Great Gulf Development Project, a luxury resort project aimed at winter tourism, started it all. Similar to Naomi's husband's situation, that project had swallowed up all our savings. Credit cards, personal loans. Now he was asking me for another urgent $100,000. Our argument in the kitchen that morning marked the end of our marriage. "Kiana, we need to find another $100,000 immediately. The contractors are waiting for payment," he said, his voice commanding. "Elias, we've already transferred all of Arctic Catch's liquid reserves to the project. What's left?" I asked, like Nia asking her husband to cut back on spending. He looked at me. His eyes were ice cold. "I'm not asking where you'll get it, Kiana. I'm telling you to get it. I'm managing Anchorage's biggest project. I need respect. Your old smelly fishing boats are dragging me down." The moment I heard those words, The well of trust inside me cracked. At that moment, I realized Elias saw me only as a financial tool. Elias's interest in my mother had always blinded me. My mother had been left alone after my father's death. Elias helped with repairs at my mother's house, managed her elderly care and insurance paperwork. "Let me handle it, Kiana," he would say. "You have enough to do with Arctic Catch. I'll take care of your mother." This interest masked Elias's real goal, to systematically take over everything left to my mother in the inheritance. My mother owned a very valuable oil field concession left to her by my father. A year ago, Elias had convinced my mother to sign a series of documents. "Power of attorney," he said. "In an emergency, we can make medical decisions." My mother trusted him and signed, but those papers were her medical and financial death warrant. Upstairs, after Elias spoke with Talia, I understood that herbal tea was slowly ending my mother's life. I quietly slipped out from behind the cupboard. I headed for Elias's study. The door was locked, just like Johanna's husband's office. But Elias's haste and arrogance had left a gap in security. I wedged the sheath of an old hunting knife that belonged to my father into the doorframe. After a few seconds of struggle, the lock bolt gave way. I slipped inside. The office was like Elias himself, cold, orderly, and dangerous. Elias kept everything in a project file. In the bottom drawer of his desk, I found a file covered with a map roll, Project Kiana and Talia. Inside the file were printouts of emails between Elias and Talia. They knew they had me in their sights, just like Melanie wrote to Tobias. "Kiana is perfect, local business owner, vulnerable, easy prey." The emails showed that the deception dated back 4 years before we got married. Our entire marriage was a project. Worse still, the transferred documents for my mother's oil field concession land. My mother's signature was on them. I also saw Talia's signature, transferring her shares in Arctic Catch to Elias. My sister wasn't just Aaron's mistress. She had sold the entire family business. The most critical document, a bank notice. It said my mother's land would be seized on Monday to pay off a construction company's debt. 2 days later, they were killing my mother. They were stealing my company, and they were leaving me in the middle of a lie. The fear was gone. Now there was pure, cold rage. Elias and Talia were waiting for the victim to cry. I wasn't going to give them that. Rage is much better fuel than pity. I immediately called Ingrid, my friend from college, who was now one of Anchorage's sharpest lawyers. Ingrid would help me, the way Jasmine had helped Johanna. "Aren't you supposed to be in Paris?" Ingrid asked. "Change of plans. You have to trust me," I said. I told her about Elias's true identity, Talia's betrayal, the stolen money, and the foreclosure on my mother's land. Ingrid's silence was as heavy as Metten's. "Kiana, we need to act immediately. Get those documents from there and go to the old hunting lodge in Valdez. Don't let anyone see you. I'm going to start working on injunctions to freeze all assets in Anchorage." I photographed every document, every email, every photo in Elias's office with my cell phone. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud server. The evidence that would ruin my mother's life, Elias's career, and Talia's freedom was now in my possession. Elias's arrogance was my first trump card. He treated me like an emotional woman who couldn't survive in Alaska's harsh landscape. Step 1. Financial freeze. Ingrid immediately imposed a preliminary injunction on the transfer process of Arctic Catch's major shares, which Elias was trying to transfer. Elias's plan to seize my company on Monday morning was now on hold. I immediately called my banks. I transferred every penny from our joint accounts to a new account in Juneau, in my name only. If Elias checked, the accounts would appear empty. Let him panic. Ingrid also took action regarding my mother's land. She requested an examination of Elias's fake construction debt documents, delaying the foreclosure decision by a week. My mother's house and land was safe for now. I could have legally destroyed Elias, but the taste of revenge required Talia's downfall too. I called Talia. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was sweet, young, and innocent, just like Melanie Hartwig's. "This is Dr. Elise Vanguard. Elias Akken gave me your number. He said you might be interested in discussing investment opportunities for a large sum of money that will be coming your way soon." Talia's voice warmed instantly. The thought of money was stronger than her cruelty. I arranged to meet her at Anchorage's most expensive sushi restaurant, a place with cameras and open to the public. I was there at 3:00 p.m. Talia arrived wearing a bright white fur coat, clearly bought by Elias. "Elias said you're very talented at scamming," I said. The greed in her eyes overtook her caution. "We've been doing this for years," she whispered. "Elias finds the victim. I carry the money, wipe the traces, arrange the exit strategy. We take everything and disappear before the woman realizes what happened." "What about Kiana?" Talia laughed, just like Johanna's husband's mistress had done. Kiana was the easiest, so emotional, so trusting. She signed everything put in front of her. Now, we have almost $4 million on Monday. We're taking over the company. I took out my phone. I showed her our wedding photo with Elias. Her face went pale. She stood up, knocking over her chair. "You can't! I'm not Dr. Vanguard, Talia. I'm Kiana Akken, and you just confessed everything. Every camera in this cafe is recording our conversation." Talia completely broke down. She started crying and continued talking. She confessed that Elias's real name was Tobin Clay, that he had served time in Texas 7 years ago for embezzlement. She explained how Elias had devised this Alaska plan to pay off Talia's debts. When I had everything, I stood up. "You said you'd help me. You'll tell the police I cooperated, right?" she pleaded. "I lied," I said, just as Elias had lied to me. "How does it feel?" I left Talia there, amidst her devastation. Sunday evening, 9:00 p.m. I sent Elias a message over the VPN, like Johanna returning from Paris. "I just got off the plane. I miss you so much. See you tomorrow." He replied immediately, "I miss you too, Angel. I made fish soup for you." That made him feel safe. Immediately afterward, I called the FBI's Anchorage office. It was Ingrid's instructions. It was interstate bank fraud. Special Agent Derek called me. I presented him with Tobin Clay's true identity, Seren's confession, the foreclosure plan for my mother's estate, and the company documents. "Ma'am, this is comprehensive. We're planning an operation for Monday morning," he said. "Catch him red-handed." Monday morning. The reckoning. I woke up before Elias. I put on my best decisive suit. The woman in the mirror was no longer that fragile fisherwoman. Elias was in the kitchen. The coffee was ready. "Big day," he said, handing me a cup. "Yes, Arctic Catch Board meeting at 10 Shroom crisis meeting." I left the house at 9 Shmeiksh. I drove straight to Arctic Catch headquarters. The board members had arrived. Just as I was about to explain, I heard a commotion outside. The door opened. Elias stood, his face flushed, holding a file in his hand. "Kiana, what's going on? Why didn't I know about this meeting?" "Actually, I have every right to be here," Aaron said, walking inside. He slammed his file down on the table. "These documents show that Kiana transferred controlling interest in the company to me in the last 2 years. I am now the majority shareholder." I turned to the board. The documents she presented are fake. It's not Elias. It's a convicted fraudster known as Tobin Clay. The blood drained from Elias's face. What? What are you talking about? Don't. The door opened. Special Agent Derek entered with 2 officers. Tobin Clay, you're under arrest for bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Elias's eyes met mine as they handcuffed him. Selma, please, I can explain. It was all a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding was mine, I said, standing up. I walked over to him, looking him straight in the eye. I misunderstood who you were. You're just a parasite. Seren? She's being arrested now, too. The lien on my mother's land has been vacated. Your offshore accounts have been frozen. No, he whispered. That's not true. Your brother is testifying against you. So am I. The commissioners pulled him toward the door. His screams echoed down the hallway. The board members sat in stunned silence. Okay, I said, taking my seat. Let's continue with the meeting. We have a lot to discuss regarding the restructuring of Arctic Catch. The old hunting lodge in Valdez was a dingy, freezing refuge my father rarely used outside of fishing season. The only view from the windows was the endless gray forest shrouded in fog and the frozen ground. Returning, slipping into this small town and reaching this lodge unseen gave Nia the same sense of isolation she'd felt in her dark closet at Atlanta General. But this place was safe. This place was beyond Tobias Clay's, Elias's, reach. I didn't sleep. Sleep was a luxury, and I was now a survivalist machine, operating like a factory accountant, as Elias put it. Fear had completely given way to a cold, steely determination. Elias and Talia waited for the victim's screams. The only thing I had left for them was a well-planned revenge. As Naya had learned, hate is far better fuel than self-pity. I called Ingrid again through the old crackling satellite link. I told her about the forged transfer documents for my mother's land I found in Elias's office, about Talia's partnership, and most importantly, that Elias's real name was Tobin Clay. Kiana, this man isn't just a cheat. He's a serial fraudster. He served 7 years in prison. One of the women he partnered with committed suicide, Ingrid said, her voice both sad and professional. Ingrid was my unwavering, loyal ally, just as Johanna was Jasmine. You need to go to the police. Now. No, Ingrid, I replied, my voice icy. The police will reward him with a prison sentence. He'll serve 3 years, get out, and find another victim. Elias stole my life, my mother's health, my father's inheritance, and the lives of other women. I will completely destroy him. The police would only prove Elias was a cheat. But I wanted to rub his arrogance, his greed, and the blood of his other victims in his face. Without wasting any time, I began reviewing all the documents I'd photographed from Elias's office. Elias's attempt to deprive my mother of her legally inalienable tenure was only the beginning. My stomach clenched when I found my mother's last medical records. Elias had planned to portray her as insane with a diagnosis of early-stage anxiety, just as Johanna's husband had done with her mother. The records contained a note in Dr. Akins's handwriting. Patient is resistant to low-dose medication. Dosage increase recommended. My mother was slowly being dragged to death by Elias's and Dr. Akins's poisonous herbal teas. This explained Elias's haste. The sooner my mother died, the smoother the transfer of the tenure would be. If my mother remained dead, but appeared unstable, Talia's signature on the transfer would be unquestionable. Ingrid contacted my mother's bank. Just as Elias had emptied our joint accounts, he had also drained my mother's account. However, my mother's true wealth was the shares in the Tlingit Native Corporation, ANC, inherited from my father. These shares could only be transferred to descendants of native ancestry. Elias used Talia to bypass this rule. Although Talia was Elias's mistress, she was of the same native ancestry as my mother. He had the authority to transfer these shares to Elias, but for the transfer to be legal, my mother had to be able to object. Ingrid secretly called my aunt, my father's sister, the chairman of Arctic Catch's board. She warned my aunt about Elias's planned sudden share transfer in the company. My aunt promised to use all her legal power to thwart Elias's takeover attempt on Monday morning. This was a precaution against Aaron's planned takeover of the company on Monday. My greatest weapon was Talia's greed and Elias's arrogance. Elias never completely trusted Talia, and Talia never completely trusted Elias. Talia wanted all the money for herself. I had to exploit this crack. I called Talia. The photos I found in Elias's office, showing Talia's lavish lifestyle on social media, had laid the groundwork for this trap. She'd believed Elias's lies about how valuable she was. I invited her to meet me at Anchorage's most expensive sushi restaurant, just as Johanna had invited Melanie to Ulster Cafe. At 3 Dallas p.m., I walked in, disguised as Dr. Elias Vanguard. Talia arrived wearing a bright white fur coat, clearly purchased by Elias. She waited for me at the table, her expression reflecting the dream of the big money Elias had promised her. "I got your number from Elias Akin," I said, my voice European, sharp and professional. "He said you might be interested in discussing investment opportunities for a large sum of money that will be transferred to you." Talia grinned cat-like. "What kind of investment?" Elias didn't elaborate. "Elias said you were very skilled at scams," I lied. "Apparently, it's thanks to your financial arrangements that this business has become so big." The greed in her eyes overshadowed caution. She wanted to be seen as a major player, beyond the minor role Elias had assigned her. "We've been doing this for years," she whispered, relishing in her betrayal. Elias finds the victim usually a lonely, emotional woman. I move the money, cover the tracks, and devise the exit strategy. We take everything, and before she knows it, we're gone. The Arctic Cat shares are almost complete. On Monday, one of Alaska's largest oil fields will be ours. Kiana's mother is no longer able to object. "What about Kiana?" I asked, keeping my voice under control. Talia laughed heartily. "Kiana was the easiest. She was like a child. She's so polite, so steeped in native traditions that she was crushed by Elias's urban arrogance. She signed up for anything he put her through, thinking it would be better for her family. Now we have almost $4 million. We're buying the company on Monday. A $100 million inheritance. Can you imagine? It was just a project." I looked into her eyes. Alicia's daughter, my mother's other daughter. This hatred and betrayal was coming from the person closest to her. Just like Seren, she was selling her own blood. I pulled out my phone and showed her my wedding photo with Elias. Her face went white. Her chair toppled over. "You can't! This—" "I'm not Dr. Vanguard, Talia. I'm Kiana Akun, and you just confessed everything. Every camera in this cafe is recording our conversation." Talia, like Nia's Chanis, completely collapsed. She began to cry. "Police! I want a lawyer." "You'll get your lawyer in prison," I said. "Now either you cooperate with me, or I'll have you tried for conspiracy to commit suicide. Life in prison." The bluff had worked. Talia spilled all the details. Elias's crimes as Tobin Clay in Texas, the locations of his offshore accounts, like the one where Clay hid the money in the Canary Islands, the location of the forged documents, and most importantly, Talia's request to help me catch Elias. You're going to tell the police I cooperated, right? She pleaded. I lied, I said. How does it feel? I left her devastated at Anchorage's most expensive restaurant. This wasn't just a war against Elias. This was closure for all the victims he had destroyed. Talia's confession had given me the name of one of Elias's victims in Texas, Sheila. Sheila was Elias's first wife, who had committed suicide after the bankruptcy. With Metten's help, I located Sheila's family. I met with Sheila's sister, Brenda, in Fairbanks, Alaska. Brenda told me how Sheila's case against Elias had been dismissed due to lack of evidence. Elias was always one step ahead. But not anymore, I told Brenda. I showed her my Tobin Clay ID, the audio recording of Talia's confession, and the medical records of my mother's poisoning plot. Brenda's tears turned to anger. I'll testify, she said. We have to stop him. Brenda's testimony would completely destroy Elias's reputation in Alaska. I had Talia's confession, Elias's criminal record, proof that Talia's company stock transfer documents were forged, and testimony from Sheila's family. It was time to go directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, instead of the local Anchorage Police Department. Ingrid set me up with Special Agent Derek. Agent Derek was already familiar with the Tobin Clay case in Texas. Ma'am, with the documents you have, we can put him in prison for life, Derek said. Not just in prison, I said. We have to hang him for his own arrogance. Monday morning, at the Arctic Catch Board meeting, he'll try to take over my company. The moment he presents these forged documents to her with complete confidence, we have to catch him red-handed. Agent Derek thought for a moment, like Johanna had with the BKA. It was risky, but the only guarantee Elias wouldn't escape all charges was to catch him in the act. Monday, 10 at Arctic Catch headquarters. We'll prepare, but Kiana, you will never go there unarmed or unprotected. I returned home. Sunday evening, just as Elias thought I'd returned from Paris. Elias, like Johanna's Tobias, was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Kiana, welcome, my angel, he cried. He kissed me. He pressed his body against mine. I felt sick. But like Nia, I played my part. Tears welled up in my eyes, real tears of hatred. Elias, I was so scared. I kept thinking about you at the conference. My mother, Arctic Catch. I'm so helpless. I'm here. I'll protect you, he said, wrapping his arms around me. We went to bed that night. Elias got up quietly an hour later. I heard him whispering on the phone. Yes, he's asleep. He doesn't suspect a thing. As Talia said, he's very emotional. I'm presenting the paperwork to the board of directors first thing tomorrow at 10 Chuan. The company is ours this afternoon. Just one more day of pretending, and then Talia and I are free. I love you. He slipped back into me and went to sleep. I lay there in the dark, only ice now etched where my tears had dried. I woke up before Elias. I put on my navy blue suit emblazoned with the Arctic Catch logo. It was my armor. I left the house at 9 Mi. Elias was sipping his coffee. Big day, he said. Yes, I replied. I hope we can resolve the problems at Arctic Catch. Elias's face flashed with a brief flash of arrogance. Don't worry, Kiana. You just run the meeting. I'll handle the boring paperwork. Good luck with your boring work, I said. I arrived at Arctic Catch headquarters at 9:55. The board members had taken their seats. Everyone was tense. I was about to explain Elias's attempt to take over the company with forged documents when I heard a commotion outside. The door opened. Elias walked in, file in hand. Just like Johanna's husband, he was about to fall into his own trap at the moment he was most confident. Kiana, what's going on? Why didn't I know about this meeting? Actually, I have every right to be here, Aaron said, walking in. Ha slammed his file down on the table. These documents show that you transferred controlling interest in the company to me. I am now the majority shareholder. I turned to the board. These documents you presented are fake. It's not Elias. It's a convicted fraudster known as Tobin Clay. The blood drained from Elias's face. What are you talking about? Don't. The door opened. Special Agent Derek entered with 2 FBI officers. Tobin Clay. You're under arrest for bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Elias's eyes met mine as he was handcuffed. Shock, anger, and utter devastation were in his eyes. The only misunderstanding was mine, I said, standing up. My trust in you. I misunderstood who you were, Tobin. You're just a parasite. Seren, a.k.a. Talia, is now being arrested as well. The lien on my mother's estate has been vacated. Your offshore accounts have been frozen. Your plan has become my revenge. Elias's screams echoed in the cold Alaskan air as the commissioners dragged him out. Okay, I said, sitting in my seat. Let's continue the meeting. We have a lot to discuss regarding the restructuring of Arctic Catch. As Elias, Tobin Clay, was dragged out by federal agents, a sudden silence fell over the Arctic Catch boardroom. The helpless, resentful look Elias gave as he was handcuffed was reflected in the frozen shock of every remaining member of the table. From the hallway outside, Agent Derek's orders and Elias's muffled screams could be heard. They were the strangest, most sickening sounds ever heard in the history of this storied Alaskan company. I, Kiana, sat there. For a moment, I felt none of the triumph Nia felt. No joy, no relief, just a deep, cold emptiness, like the frozen, desolate tundra in winter. Elias was gone, but the poison he had left lingered in the air. I looked at the board. Instead of offering my thanks or an explanation, I spoke in a completely professional tone, as Johanna had. All right, thank you for your attention. Let's turn to more pressing matters. Elias Atkins, a.k.a. Tobin Clay's attempt to seize ownership of the company using forged documents has failed. However, our company's reputation and financial standing are in grave danger. The oldest board member, old Mrs. Martha, took a deep breath. Kiana, all these years, we trusted you. I trusted him too, I replied, without a trace of emotion in my voice. Now, we need to review the legal situation at hand. Ingrid, please continue. Ingrid placed a file on the table. All the illegal loans Elias had secured using his reputation had depleted Arctic Catch's liquidity. According to information from the Project Kiana and Talia file, Elias had embezzled $3 million from the Greater Gulf Development Project in Anchorage. To cover up this crime, he had pledged Arctic Catch's core assets as collateral. Ingrid's voice echoed through the room. The board of directors must be notified immediately, terminating all Tobin Clay's authority and temporarily freezing all financial transactions of the company. Otherwise, these debts will fall on Arctic Catch. I realized then that imprisoning Elias was only the first stage of the battle. Now, I had to clear the financial wreckage Elias had created. The meeting lasted 4 hours. Every decision was geared toward rescuing the company from this quagmire. Saving Arctic Catch meant preserving my father's legacy and the economic strength of the native community. That afternoon, news of Elias's arrest sent shockwaves through the Alaskan press. Elias, known as a rising star in Anchorage, had now been exposed as a convicted fraudster from Texas named Tobin Clay. The headlines, like Naya's case, were devastating. Who is Tobin Clay? Anchorage's star revealed a serial cheat. Arctic Catch shares drop, inheritance squabble or grand conspiracy, and Kiana Atkins' unbelievable story of betrayal. My mother's oil field concession, inherited from her former Tlingit tribe, was the most talked about story on local news outlets in Alaska. With the help of Agent Derek, Elias's plan to medically liquidate my mother was leaked to the public. This created an emotional tsunami against Elias's case. Alaska's hardened Native community rose up against my mother's betrayal. Elias was seen not only as a fraudster, but as an enemy of Native heritage. My mother's situation. First thing, I left the cabin and went to my mother. Dr. Akins had been arrested along with Elias. My mother had been secretly recovered from the effects of poisonous herbal teas, Ingrid's emergency plan, at a foreign hospital. I found my mother in our luxurious home in downtown Anchorage. Her face was pale, but she was smiling. She hugged me. In that moment, all my anger and exhaustion melted away. "My daughter," she whispered. I knew. Something was wrong inside me. I told her who Elias really was, Talia's betrayal, and Dr. Akins's medical conspiracy. My mother listened, tears streaming down her face. It was the painful truth Johanna had to tell her mother. "Trusting enough," she said, her voice weak. "Sometimes trusting means not reading. I made a mistake." "You didn't make a mistake, Mom," I replied. "You trusted a hunter. Now you're safe. And that concession land? They'll never take it." Ingrid had obtained a court order, suspending all mortgages and liens on my mother's land. The land was now in a trust fund. Elias would never be able to reach her. The inheritance was secured. Talia was arrested at Anchorage Police Station the day after Elias. The FBI had tracked Talia's money transfers to Elias through offshore accounts. Talia was the financial mastermind of the conspiracy. Ingrid and I secured permission to speak with her through Talia's lawyer. The prison interview room was cold and stuffy. Instead of the expensive fur coat Elias had bought her, Talia was in an orange jumpsuit. Her face was swollen, her eyes red. She was no longer the cat-like, sarcastic Melanie Hartwig. She was simply a frightened woman. "Kiana," she moaned, "you're ruining me. I only followed Elias's orders. He told me he would pay my debts, my gambling debts, or they would kill me." "Don't lie, Talia," I said as Nia looked at Shanis. "You weren't just a victim. You were an active partner. You wanted our mother dead, for me to lose everything. I know you told Elias how frigid and boring I was. I know you had sex with him when I was in Paris." Talia's last resistance crumbled. "I'll testify against him," she pleaded. "Just help me. I'm your blood, Kiana." "Blood?" I laughed. "As Amelie said, family isn't blood. It's choice. You chose Elias," Ingrid interjected. "Talia, I want the financial documents for Elias's Greater Bay Development Project in Anchorage. Where is the $3 million stolen from that project? It doesn't show up in Elias's offshore accounts. Who was he working for?" Although Talia lived with the paranoia that Elias was watching her constantly, as Talia confessed at the last second, there was a bigger name behind this scheme. "Elias was just a pawn in this project," Talia whispered. "The real financier, Anas Sarıkaya. Anas Sarıkaya, Anchorage's biggest political figure, the president of the city council, the man Elias constantly talked about, the man he built that luxury house to impress. Like Chambers' father in Naomi's story, Anas was Elias's shield of immunity." Talia continued. "Elias stole $3 million from the project, but it came from Anas's corrupt funds. Instead of transferring it to accounts in the Canary Islands, Elias used it to pay off his own debts. When Anas found out, he threatened Elias with death. That's why Elias panicked. That's why he sold me out. To get Anas's money back, Elias would give Anas our mother's concession land, with Talia's signature as collateral. Everything was falling into place now. Elias's rush wasn't just to get my money. It was to escape Anas Sarıkaya's retribution. Ingrid frowned. Anas Sarıkaya is the most powerful man in the city. Even the FBI would have a hard time interrogating him. If Elias stole his money, that's dangerous. I turned to Talia. Talia, do you have any proof that Anas threatened Elias? An email? A voice recording? Elias had an old voice recorder in a locked drawer in his office. Elias said he recorded his last conversation with Anas. If you don't get this money back, you won't be able to breathe in Alaska, Tobin, Anas said. This was the most crucial piece of evidence we had. Elias had kept the gun he used to capture Anas as his own death warrant. Like Naya's old phone record, this was the old evidence needed to hunt the big game. I left Talia there. Ingrid immediately began negotiating with federal prosecutors to get a lenient sentence in exchange for Talia's confession. For me, Talia was finished. After Elias's arrest and the emergence of Anas Sarıkaya's name, the local media in Anchorage shifted their focus away from Elias. Just as in Naomi's story, the city's powerful men were trying to protect him. Ingrid reiterated her warnings. If we touch Anas, even Elias's case will become difficult. He controls the courts, the judges, everything. He's Chambers himself, Kiana. You're safe now, but if you attract Anas's attention, he'll destroy you faster than Elias. I told her I needed to retrieve the voice recorder I'd found in Elias's office. Elias's office was sealed, but Ingrid had a friend who was a forensic locksmith. Thursday night, Anchorage was gripped by a blizzard. We infiltrated Elias's apartment. The federal seal on the office door was cold and solemn. The locksmith silently unlocked the lock, just as Nia had used her lockpick. Inside, the office was deserted. The FBI had seized all the important documents, but I knew Elias wouldn't easily give up his leverage against Anas. I opened the locked drawer. Inside was nothing about Anas, just a stack of golf magazines and a bottle of cheap whiskey. Just as I was about to give up, I remembered the secret safe in Naomi's story. Like my father's cabin, Elias must have a hiding place. I checked under his desk. A small metal button under the tabletop. I pressed it. A secret compartment opened from the back of the drawer. Inside was a voice recorder and 2 small notebooks. I immediately turned on the audio recording. Elias's voice blended with Anas's harsh, authoritative voice. If you don't get this money back, you won't be able to breathe in Alaska. Before I left the office, my eye fell on a photo on Elias's desk. Me, Elias, and Elara. Elara is my oldest, most trusted friend. She's been my biggest confidant since long before I met Elias. There was a note on the back of the photo in Elias's handwriting. Elara, 10 million. Just for one night, until everything is resolved. She knows what we want. She knows what we want. Elara, she knows what we want. Elara was the executive assistant in Anas Sarıkaya's office. She had been there for me through all these incidents with Elias. She had comforted me, cursed Elias. She had even accidentally given me the combination to the door locks to enter Elias's office. At that moment, I felt the cold fire of Naomi's sister Tia's betrayal burning through my heart. Was Elara my Tia? I quickly returned to the cabin. I called Elara on my phone. Her voice was worried. Kiana, my God, I heard Elias was arrested. I'm so scared. Anas Sarıkaya is so nervous. They're looking for you. Do you have any evidence on him? Anas, they're interrogating me. Calm down, Elara, I said, my voice tired and flat. Everything will be fine. I found a card Elias used against Anas. A very important recording, but I'm afraid Anas will get his hands on it. Where is that recording? he asked, his voice a little sharper than usual. I don't know, but I'm going to see Ingrid. Help me. Anas will go through all the financial records in your office. On a hard drive, there are original copies of the forged documents related to the Arctic Catch shares Elias sold me. We need to get them. Help me, Elara, just like Kiana helped Nia. Elara paused. I'm scared, Kiana. What if I get caught? Are you more afraid of Elias, who betrayed us, being released? Okay, Elara said. I'll take that hard drive out tomorrow morning when Anas is in a meeting. But you won't tell anyone, will you? I'm the only one you trust. You're the only one I trust. I lied, just as Elias had. I hung up. Elara was an administrative assistant in Anas's office, so the 10 million in the notebook in Elias's office was a bribe Elara took to protect Elias from Anas. Elias had used Elara to infiltrate Anas, and Anas had used Elara to monitor Elias. Both had used Elara to manipulate me. And right now, Elara was ready to hand me over to Anas, just like Naomi's Tia. Anas needed a middleman to get the Anas Sarıkaya tapes I had and put me in jail with Elias. And that middleman was my best friend, Elara. This was Anas's trap. I remembered the lesson Naomi had learned from Eleanor Vance. Stop fear, use anger. Turn the weapon they're going to use against you against them. Elara would retrieve the fake hard drive from Anas's office and bring it to me. This would be Anas's plan to catch me red-handed. The notebooks in Elias's office detailed the bribery and corruption network Anas was involved in. These notebooks were evidence even Agent Derek had struggled to access. I called Agent Derek immediately. My voice was firm and cold. Agent Derek, I will bring you Anas, the mastermind of Anchorage's largest corruption ring. But we must do this on my terms. Monday morning, 11 a.m., in the Arctic Catch boardroom. I will have very specific evidence with me. But you must come alone, and you must not tell anyone. Derek paused. Kiana, Anas Sarıkaya is very dangerous. They could be setting you up. They are, I said. But I'm going there with the notebooks proving Anas's own crimes. All I'm asking is that you record the moment someone in Anas's office hands me the forged evidence. Agent Derek took a deep breath. It's an incredible risk, but this evidence could shake all of Alaskan politics. I accept. Monday, 11 hours. But before I enter the room, we need to make sure everything is recorded. I was ready to walk right into Anas's trap, just as I'd turned Elias's plan to destroy me into my own revenge. Now I was going to use Anas's trap against him. I called Elara. Elara, meet me in the Arctic Catch boardroom on Monday morning. 11 Nagachas. Don't let anyone know. Did you get the recording? I did. I'm scared, Kiana. Don't be afraid. You will be with me. I hung up. The Arctic Catch boardroom was where Elias had been defeated. Now it would be Anas Sarıkaya's downfall as well. Elias hadn't just stolen money from me. He had forced me to fight against the city's largest criminal organization. Elias's evil had become, as Naomi had said, an instrument. Now I would just wait for Monday. Anas's move, Elara's betrayal, and my ultimate victory. I was no longer the victim. I was Alaska's cold, calculating hunter. The FBI's stinging arrest of Elias Tobin Clay from the Arctic Catch boardroom sent shockwaves through Anchorage politics. Headlines screamed not only that a con artist had been caught, but also that the reputations of some of the city's most respected figures had been tarnished. Like Naya's case, the media ran Elias's story with headlines like Alaska's rising star turns into a Texas con artist with a criminal record, and Arctic catch stocks slumping, inheritance squabble, or a grand conspiracy. Elias's arrest opened the door to a federal investigation into the money Anas stole from the Greater Gulf Development Project. Anas Sarıkaya's name quickly entered the media spotlight after Elias's arrest. Like Chambers and his daughter Tiffany in Naomi's story, Anas wielded significant political and business influence in Anchorage. Ingrid's warnings rang in my ears. If we touch Anas, even Elias's case will be difficult. He controls the courts, the judges, everything. You're safe now, but if you attract Anas's attention, he'll destroy you faster than Elias. But the voice recording Anas left in Elias's office was my biggest trump card. It proved Elias's plan to use my mother's land to secure Anas's illicit funds. The day after Elias's arrest, Talia was arrested on charges of conspiracy and aiding fraud. The FBI traced Talia's money transfers to Elias through offshore accounts. Talia was the financial mastermind behind the plot. Ingrid and I visited Talia in the prison interview room. Instead of the expensive fur coat Elias had bought her, Talia was wearing an orange jumpsuit. Her eyes were swollen, her face livid. She was no longer the cat-like, cynical Melanie Hartwig or Seren. She was simply a frightened, remorseful woman. "Kiana, you're ruining me," she groaned. "I was just following Elias's orders. He told me he would pay my debts, my gambling debts, or they would kill me." "Don't lie, Talia," I said, my voice flat. "You weren't just a victim. You were an active partner. You wanted our mother dead, for me to lose everything." I knew what the diary I'd found in Elias's office said. Talia had called me frigid and boring. This betrayal ran deep. Talia agreed to testify against Elias. This would reduce her sentence. But the truly shocking revelation was about the bigger fish behind Elias's scheme. Talia admitted that Elias was working for Anas Sarıkaya, Anchorage's most powerful political figure. Elias had stolen $3 million from Anas's illicit corruption funds, and instead of diverting the money to accounts in the Canary Islands, he used it to pay off his own debts. Elias's panic wasn't so much about my own vengeance as about escaping Anas's bloody retribution. Talia confirmed that Elias had planned to pledge my mother's land to Anas as collateral to repay the money. Elias had an old tape recorder in a locked drawer in his office, Talia whispered. Elias said he had recorded his last conversation with Anas. "If you don't get this money back, you won't be able to breathe in Alaska, Tobin," Anas had said. This was the most crucial piece of evidence I had. Elias had kept the weapon he used to capture Anas as his own death warrant. Despite Ingrid's warnings, we infiltrated Elias's sealed office. As a blizzard raged across Alaska, our locksmith entered Elias's apartment. In a secret compartment under Elias's office desk, I found the tape recorder I was looking for and 2 small notebooks. The audio recording proved that Elias had stolen Anas's money, but that Anas had intended to secure this illicit money with Arctic Catch's assets. One notebook was Elias's personal diary, detailing his performance with me and Talia. The second notebook detailed all of Anas's illicit money transfers and corruption network in Anchorage. A record Elias had kept for his own protection, one that could have brought down the entire city. Before I left the office, I caught sight of a photo on Elias's desk. Me, Elias, and Alara. Alara was my oldest, most trusted friend. On the back of the photo was a note. Alara, 10 million Turkish lira, just for one night until everything is resolved. She knows what we want. Alara was Anas's administrative assistant in his office. She had been there for me through all of these incidents with Elias. She had comforted me. It was like the moment Nia discovered Tia's betrayal in Naomi's story. Was Alara my Tia? I immediately called Alara. I told her I'd found Anas's records and asked if they were safe. She sounded worried. I told her that a hard drive in Anas's office contained original copies of the forged documents related to the Arctic catch shares Elias had sold me, and that we needed to retrieve them. Ilara said she would remove the hard drive on Monday morning, the day Anas was at the meeting. "I'm the only one you trust," she said. I realized then that Ilara was a pawn in stealing the evidence Anas was trying to get back from Elias. The $10 million in the notebook in Elias's office was a bribe Ilara had taken to protect Anas from Elias. Elias and Anas had used Ilara to manipulate me. And now, just like Naomi's Tia, Ilara was ready to hand me over to Anas. Walking into Anas's trap, I remembered the lesson Naomi had learned from Eleanor Vance. Stop fear, use anger. Turn the weapon they're going to use against you against them. Ilara was Anas's trap. The notebooks in Elias's office detailed the web of bribery and corruption involving Anas. These notebooks were evidence even Agent Derek had trouble accessing. I called Agent Derek. My voice was firm and cold. "Agent Derek, I'm going to bring you Anas Sarıkaya, the mastermind of Anchorage's largest corruption ring. But we have to do it on my terms. Monday morning, 11 a.m., in the Arctic Catch boardroom. I'll have very specific evidence with me. But you must come alone, and you must not tell anyone." Derek agreed. On Monday morning, I would walk into the trap Anas had set to catch me red-handed, armed with notebooks proving Anas's own crimes. I called Ilara. "Ilara, let's meet in the Arctic Catch boardroom on Monday morning, 11 a.m. Don't tell anyone. Did you get the recording?" Ilara was surprised to hear the meeting place was the Arctic Catch boardroom, as Anas had directed her elsewhere. But I knew that where Elias was defeated, Anas would also be defeated. Monday, morning, 11 a.m., Arctic Catch's boardroom. The very table where Elias had been arrested. The board members stared in shock, eyes filled with suspicion, wondering if Ilara should be at Anas's meeting. At 10:55, Ilara entered the room, sweating. In her hand was an envelope containing a fake hard drive stolen from Elias's office. "Kiana, I got it. Anas's meeting ran over. He told me to give this to you. These are the original shares Elias sold you. Take it and go now." "Thank you, Ilara," I said, taking the envelope. "This is a step toward your freedom." Just then, the door opened. In walked Anas Sarıkaya, the most powerful man in Anchorage, whose photo I'd seen in Elias's office. He was accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Anas scanned the room. He saw me. No one was with me. He thought the trap was set. "Kiana Akin," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "Where are those records you stole from Elias's office? I know you found them. Either hand them over to me, or you'll be your next-door neighbor in your husband's cell." "I have the records, Anas," I said, maintaining my composure. "But first, I want to show you something. This is the fake hard drive Ilara brought me." Anas looked at Ilara. Ilara groaned in panic. "Ilara," Anas shouted. "Didn't I tell you to meet her somewhere else? Who sent you here?" "Kiana lied," Ilara whispered, looking up at me. "Kiana said she wouldn't leave until she got it back. I was scared." "Fear," I scoffed. "Fear is the only weapon Anas uses. And I have the notebooks that prove your fears." On the table, I laid Elias's notebooks, detailing Anas's network of corruption. "These are Elias's insurance policy against you. All the bribes in Anchorage, all the fake projects, and of course, the details proving that the $3 million Elias stole was your illicit funds." Anas's face turned purple. At the other end of the hallway, a door opened silently. Agent Derek was there. Anas motioned to his guards. "Get it! Right now!" "No, Anas. I said. This wasn't Elias's trap. This was mine. I turned to Anas and smiled. I didn't bring you Elias's audio recording, but I did bring you Elias's entire network of corruption and every piece of evidence he has against you. And now, if your guards get their hands on me, copies of these notebooks will be reaching every local and federal media outlet right now. It was a bluff, just like Naya had done with her phone at the last moment. There was no signal, but Anas didn't know that. All he knew was that Elias could expose him at any moment. Anas stopped. He walked toward me. His face, like Elias's in his final moment, was filled with utter anger and despair. "What do you want?" he roared. "I want you to hand over the corruption network's ledgers to the FBI, return the $3 million Elias didn't steal to Arctic Catch, and relinquish all claims to my mother's concession land. And of course, you will do everything in your power to keep Elias from prison. I will commute Talia's sentence, because she was a pawn in Elias's hands. But you will be my slave." Anas, the most powerful man in Alaska, was gasping. At that moment, Agent Derek entered the room. "Anas, I am here in this office on behalf of the FBI regarding allegations of corruption and embezzlement." The moment Anas agreed to fall for his own scheme to save face, Elias's, Tobin Clay, fate was sealed. Anas was forced to hand over Elias's ledgers and audio recording to federal agent Derek. The $3 million Elias hadn't stolen came from funds Anas controlled. This money was returned to Arctic Catch to protect Anas's image. Thus, to save himself, Anas forced Elias's grandest conspiracy in Alaska to be exposed and forced to resign from all claims to my mother's land. The law was swift and merciless. Anas, Alaska's most powerful man, was placed under federal investigation thanks to Elias's corruption record and forced to resign. Elias was charged with bank fraud, identity theft, and attempted murder by poisoning my mother. The testimony of Talia, the other victim, Sheila's family, and myself, combined with the evidence, made the outcome clear. Elias received a sentence similar to Tobias Brand's. Talia, however, secured a reduced sentence thanks to her cooperation, but she still paid the price for her complicity. The Arctic Catch Board of Directors immediately took action to clean up the enormous financial wreckage Elias had left behind. All the massive debts Elias had incurred were placed under the responsibility of Elias's embezzled assets. Kiana, like Johanna, dedicated herself to rebuilding Arctic Catch. The company survived as a symbol of my father's integrity and the strength of the indigenous community. My mother recovered. She was not the unstable person Elias had planned, but rather an unwavering pillar of strength that gave me moral strength in this battle. All legal obstacles to my mother's oil field concession were lifted, and the land was transferred to a trust fund, never to be exploited again. A month later, Kiana decided to put an end to this horrific chapter in her life. She visited Elias one last time, just as Nia had with Tariq. Elias was in the prison infirmary of a state-run facility on the edge of Anchorage. His room was small, the air heavy, and the smell of despair. He was imprisoned behind glass, within those four walls. The expression on his face bore no trace of the arrogant smile he had worn that day. Only pure, impotent hatred burned in his eyes. Kiana walked over to Elias. His face was calm and clear. Elias tried to speak, but his voice came out muffled. "You cast me as a victim, a helpless victim, addicted to machines and drugs," Kiana said, with the same coldness Nia had given Tariq. "Now you're trapped within those four walls, a prisoner of your own lies and greed. I'm free. Arctic Catch is mine. My mother's land is mine. My only regret is trusting you for 8 years." As Elias glared at her with vengeance, Kiana smiled. It wasn't a smile of hatred or satisfaction. It was a smile of liberation. "You know, Elias," Kiana said, "you didn't just steal my money. You made me the strongest, coldest hunter in Alaska. And this was the outcome you never imagined. Your hatred became my fuel." Kiana turned around. She walked through the corridors and out the front door of the facility. The Alaskan sun beat down on her face. The air was fresh and crisp, like a new beginning. To preserve Arctic Catch's legacy to the native community, Kiana used the proceeds from her mother's land to establish a Native Women's Financial Education and Legal Support Foundation, just as Johanna had. Elias's evil had become a mission to help others. Kiana realized that in trying to destroy her, Elias had created something she never expected. He created someone stronger than she could ever be, and that was the best revenge of all.